Hi everyone! Today I'm going to be talking about The Nightmare Before Christmas, Tim Burton's classic, and I have my Jack shirt picked out just for today for it. I'd like to thank my friend Lindsay for suggesting me to do this video. And if you want to be like Lindsay, leave an anime film you want me to review in the comment section below. Now, this movie wasn't a hit when it first came out, which I'm sure a lot of you will be surprised by. And Disney had no hopes for this one. For the longest time before it became really popular, it was released under their Touchstone banner, which is usually done for more adult Disney films that Disney doesn't really want to be associated with them. But the success of this movie made them willing to put their own name on it years later. Yeah. When it becomes a success. Just the way Disney is sometimes. Similar films that I'm sure I'll get to for other reviews in the future. I'm sure they could do the reverse. They would put it under their Touchstone names now. But that's for another day. Today I'm going to be talking about how The Nightmare Before Christmas went from being a, a box office, not necessarily failure, but underperformance, into becoming a sensation and one of the most popular Disney movies. I think a large portion of it has to do with a very creative concept. Combining two opposite items is a gamble that often comes either to be great success or not so great success. The former is what we have here. Christmas and Halloween combined, and we have some great story ideas from Tim Burton, who wrote the poem, with a good director, Henry Selick, behind the director's chair, who would also direct Coraline years later. And just the idea of how a skeleton would try to make Christmas and bring what he thinks is cheery into the world, even when it terrifies humans, even as much as his actual Halloween attempts do, which is pretty fun concept. And just seeing how different they are, but how well they work together, is what makes this film a success. Very few films work equally well for Halloween or Christmas. The only one I know of off the top of my head is Gremlins, which is a lot less cheery than it is Halloweeny. This movie works perfectly for either. While it does have the more spooky feel than the cheery, so it would lean more towards Halloween probably, which is what the director said it was intended to be, a Halloween movie. But still, there's a certain charm to it that works perfectly for Christmas. The heartwarming moments between Jack and Sally, the way Christmas Town looks, Jack's hopes to bring everybody a Merry Christmas, even though it has disastrous results. So the Christmas elements aren't just saying, oh yeah, this, ho ho ho, Merry Christmas. Just say it's a Christmas movie like some other unofficial Christmas movies might do. But it really has the same feelings you might get from a more conventional Christmas movie too, in my opinion. Now, animation is probably what makes this film so loved. It looks beautiful. The different worlds all look really creative. We have the human world, we have Halloween Town, and we have Christmas Town. Human Town is more understated, but still looks really nice with the motion animation but Christmas Town and Halloween Town are what you're watching this movie for. You don't care about that at all. Now, it was said that they were really inspired for this movie by the RankinBass Christmas specials. And yeah, I can definitely see it, but this movie does it better. It has some of the flaws of the animation of RankinBass specials, but done purposefully. We have it that some of the characters kind of look sort of toy-like, kind of like how, say, Hermie the Elf or Rudolph might. And like the mayor has his mouth like this, kind of supporting from his face, and by like a little crack here and there, kind of making him look doll-like, as well as a wind-up polar bear in Christmas Town. But it works to this movie's credit. It's obviously done intentionally, since when you see the rest of the movie, when it's really trying to be visually dazzling, it does it phenomenally. Halloween Town is more understated with colors, both darker ones like blacks and dark grays, as well as pale ones for faces. It's not incredibly colorful. The actual colors like blues and reds are lighter or more understated, as opposed to Christmas Time when it feels just like a Christmas card of color with white. I mean, there's white for the snow, but then the Christmas trees, some of the elves' costumes, all the typical Christmas colors, red, green, and then there's other colors in it, beauty, and it's just great to look at. All the little details also look nice in these worlds. They have bats and pumpkins everywhere. A bat on the mayor's outfit. Pumpkins are everywhere in Halloween Town. Jack has an eye on his door as a doorknob or something like that. I'm still not quite sure if it's meant to be the knob or what. A rat for a doorbell chain. Black cat to start a siren. As opposed to Christmas Time where we have trees everywhere in similar ways to those other decorations that I just mentioned. Other times there's projections. I can't talk right. Particularly for ghosts and the This Is Halloween number, and also for some ghouls during the end of Oogie Boogie's song, which also will really add to another element to it, that while it's not exactly the same as everything, it doesn't feel out of place, and it still looks visually great. All the contraptions that we see in the movie, particularly Oogie's ones, are pleasant to look at, and they look really threatening. And some of these visuals are really scary. They scare the poop out of me as a kid. And okay, I admit, I was a wimpy kid, really. But still, it has a nice dark element. So kids that like being scared will have a lot to enjoy in this movie. So it definitely works for a family-friendly Halloween one, as well as a Christmas movie for people that really aren't into Merry Christmas and la 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 la. And the visuals are a large part of that. Beyond the concept, as I previously mentioned, the story is honestly pretty mature. Jack doesn't encounter Oogie until towards the end, so he has a lot of inner conflicts, wanting to find something new and getting the excitement of finding it, not quite understanding it yet and trying to make it his own, which doesn't work well. Oftentimes in animated films, especially Disney ones, people wind up trying to take a major gamble and try something new, but it doesn't quite work out the way they but it does work out the way they wanted to. Sorry, strike that, reverse it. In this movie, it doesn't work out that way. It actually winds up becoming a terrible disaster, which is sort of the inverse of this movie in a way, because it had so much going against it, but still wound up to be fascinating and beautiful. But anyone can relate to Jack's scenario, and he is older than a typical Disney protagonist. No, not just because he's dead, so might have a really ambiguous age and being hundreds of years old. No, just adult. Period. It's rare for Disney movies, and that really works for this one because it makes him more relatable to all audiences, because the wanting for something new in your life, even when you have success at doing other things, is normal, and it's something that comes up more in the later years of your life, I would definitely say. So that makes him a great character. Going into characters, might as well continue with Jack. He messes up big time in this movie, but at the same time, he's really hard not to like because he has great intentions. He's kind to others. He wants to bring all the joys that he thinks of Christmas to people, and he doesn't mean to terrorize or anything. It's Halloween. That's what you're supposed to do. And yeah, he's really flawed, really. He makes a lot of mistakes. He probably causes more trouble than Oogie Boogie does directly, since really Santa wouldn't be in that situation in the first place if it weren't for Jack, which makes it more relatable. Instead of hero has to be the solution to everything, the hero being the cause of some problems actually is interesting and a real subversion of what's typical in animated movies, and it makes him more three-dimensional and helps you feel for him when he realizes the mistakes he's made. Sally is by far the most competent character in the movie. She's clever. She has the good sense to know when something isn't right. Santa himself acknowledges this at the end of the film. She's crafty enough to get herself out of situations, away from her master, Dr. Finkelstein, and almost came up with a brilliant plan to save Santa that, while it didn't wind up working, still was a really creative way to do it. Everyone's like Dr. Finkelstein and the mayor are really entertaining ones, and the way their anatomy works, like we can see Finkelstein being able to open his head to see his brain, and the mayor's constant switching of his head when his moods change and when he's more anxious, like back to normal. He has his tan face when it's really pale, almost with fright when he's nervous, which is really clever, and it works perfectly for this movie. Oogie Boogie is just a fun villain. He's threatening, but he has a bit of sass to him too, and he just wants to have fun. The only problem is the kind of fun he wants is the kind that harms everyone else around him. And Lock, Shock, and Barrel are great henchmen to him that are mostly serving out of fear, and they do have a bit of redemption at the end. But I would have liked to see more of that beforehand, which wasn't likely to happen because originally they were going to be worse and get excited at the idea of Jack in trouble and Sally teaching them a lesson. But they didn't go with that in the final draft. Finally, the songs for this movie are wonderful. This has become, I'd say, as popular as most Disney songs. This Is Halloween is a great song that puts the setting into place. Jack's Lament is a song that really makes you feel for him and understand him. Kidnapped Sandy Claus and Oogie Boogie Song are great villain songs. Sally's song, similar to Jack's Lament, just really teaches us who she is, helps us understand what Sally's hopes and dreams are, similar to Jack's. And the score by Danny Elfman is one of the best things in this movie. So, The Nightmare Before Christmas, it's probably so popular because, well, it's the only thing like it. Yeah, Tim Burton made other stop-motion animated films, Corpse Bride and Frankenweenie, one that's on the list, by the way. But they aren't anything like this movie because they have different concepts, and the concept of this movie is what probably, I feel, really sells it, as well as characters that you can really relate to. No clearly perfect individual, even though we have our villain that's all bad with Oogie. So, because of all the great elements of this movie, it's easy to see why it's become a classic for both Christmas and Halloween. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again later.